had a go at just creating a animation which has a lot of squash and stretch. Now we just want to work on the cube. So we can hide this animation for now, and we want to make the cube visible. Alright, just quickly zoom on it on that. Period button on the number pad just zooms in again, just a quick reminder. And we want to set the orientation again, so we want to make sure that the pivot point is at the bottom, which makes our animating a little bit easier. So I'll just select the bottom face or all four of these vertexes. Go into mesh, I want to snap my 3D cursor onto where it's selected. Go back onto object mode, set origin. I want to set the origin down to the bottom face. Alright, we'll just make sure we'll return the 3D cursor to the middle of the grid again. Alright, so same principles applies. We still have your timeline, we have our graph editor, which we'll be using throughout this tutorial. And we're not going to start off at the top. For this one, we want to use, we want this box to almost spring up from the ground upwards. So as a starting point, we want to still remain using the 30 frames for this animation. We go on to the first frame, which is 0 in our case, and I want us to keyframe that. That's probably not going to remain the same. We'll probably just we just want to see how the overall animation looks, then we'll add on to it from there. So we'll click on I, which is a hotkey, click on I on the location, click on I on the scale, because those are the two channels that we're going to be using. We want to make sure the first and last frame is identical, so I'll just move it on to frame 30. Click I, location, I on the scale, so I'm keyframing that. And we want to move on to frame 15, and now we want this box to almost jump up, so we'll probably make it jump up by 8 spaces as well, or maybe we can make it jump up by 9 just for the sake. Alright, so the box is jumping up by 9 spaces. We're happy with that. Click on I, keyframe that, and we have this beautiful arc at its form. Alright, so let's see how the animation looks. So click on spacebar, and right now we just have a box going up and down. Okay, so what we will be looking for is we want to build a little bit of anticipation. So just before you, like usually when you're about to jump, you bend your knees and you actually spring up. So that's the effect that we want to create. So we'll probably go forward 5 spaces or 5 frames. So in that 5 frames, I want to set the z-axis back to 0, and I'll keyframe that, which is I. And what I want to do is change the scale. So I'm going to scale that. I'm actually going to exaggerate this one a lot. So we'll make the z-axis where it comes to scale to 0.2. Then we want to make sure the volume is maintained. So we're going to change that to 1.9. Alright, so it's quite flat at the moment, but it will start to develop. So I'll keyframe that as well. Alright, so as soon as it starts, we're gonna build up anticipation, and we want it to explode up. Alright, so we worked with 5 frames before. We'll walk to 4 frames. Then we want to probably add another 4 frames. So just as it takes off, we want it to spring up. So let's change that to 0.8, almost reversing it. And then we want to change that to 0.1. Alright, that is so exaggerated. I'm not going to do that. Let me see, probably, let's say 0.3. Still too, so let's say 0.4. Yeah. So let's keep it as 0.4. So what we'll do is change this to 0.2. So that's 612. So we'll change that to 0.2. Alright. So that's a huge, that is very dramatic, to be honest. But hey, we might as well go big. Alright. So what I want to do is keyframe that, which is I. And I want to just quickly scroll through it just to see how it looks. So we start first frame, just a normal cube, stretch, it explodes up. And as it reaches the peak, we want it to decelerate and go back into the cube. So it's going to explode up. We'll keep frame 15, so let's go back probably, let's go back 12 frames to frame 12. At frame 12, what we can do, actually no, we can keep it all the way down there, and we'll just change the scale there to 1. So it's gone back into a cube. Alright, yeah, that looks good. So jump up. As it jumps straight up, it almost goes right to the peak. It squashes back out, and as soon as it drops down, so let's go by another, let's go another 5 frames. Then we want to scale that down as well. So say 0.2 for that, and we can say 0.4. Scale that, I mean keyframe that. So we'll have this box jump up, hits the top, decelerates, squashes back to its original size, then gravity pulls it straight down, and it hits the ground again. So in fact, before I even do that, what I can do, frame 20, I want to duplicate those frames, and I'll move that to frame, I duplicate that, and I'll move that to frame 27. Oh yeah, frame 27. And since I don't think I'll need that, I'll just delete those ones. The reason why I want it to stretch almost as if it's going all the way down, then when it gets to the bottom, so it's thick, then it goes stretches all the way down until it almost hits the ground. And when it hits the ground, we want it to just Alright, cool. What I can do, I'll actually take that all the way down to the ground. So hit I, then I'll change the scale. No, I'll keep the scale, but we'll move it to frame 30, and it should go back. Doing alright. Yeah. I can actually have a quick pop right in between here. It's because it's accelerated, it hit the ground. Now it's dispersing, getting back to original, but since we're exaggerating it, it's going to be a quick pop. So let's just change that to 0.8. X and Y, we'll say 1.1. And we'll keyframe that. Alright, so we'll go back to frame 1. Let's play that out. Jumps up all the way down. Up, down, up, down. Alright, that looks decent for now. Can bring back my sphere, and I'll play through both cycles. Alright. Okay. So we have our squash and stretch. We used our ease in, ease out. So easing in and easing out just controls the speed in which gravity is going to pull down these objects. The one thing that we didn't do is we wanted to have an easier arc. So what we'll do, just select the peak, click on S, and we'll just scale that out just a little bit. So our animation can be a little bit more smoother. Yeah, that looks a little bit smoother. Alright. So we have our squash and stretch, basic fundamentals of animating. So once you've done that, you can actually go on to your output settings, which is, or output properties. We want to render out from frame 0 to 30, 24 frames. You have this icon, so now you can find the location in which you want to save your work at. So I'll save it here. So I'll just save that animation. I'll say animation test. I'll accept that as a location. As soon as you change that, you see it gives you a file format. So if you click down the drop down menu, we want to use this FFmpeg video, because that will compress our files. We wouldn't have a huge massive files, and it's nice for a good preview. So we'll click FFS files, and save your color channel as RGB, and all we're just doing to render, either click on your control F12 or command F12. Now you can batch render your animation. Before you want to animate, you need to make sure that your camera is at a cool location. So maybe before I do that, I might just zoom in a little bit like this. Maybe rotate up. And since I want to render out this particular frame, I can click on Control Alt number pad 0, and that snaps my camera to where I was looking at. Click on N for my properties, just bring up this menu so I can just move the camera to the exact location. So maybe that. Let me see how it looks when it bounces all the way up. Maybe let me just look at that just a little bit. Alright, so I'm happy with that once I've done that. I'll just click on render. But I'm not going to do that because I'll let you guys do that. Alright.